NKU News. Hello and welcome to NKU News. This is an NKU News Desk exclusive.
In response to the recent crime that happened on campus, we took this time to collaborate a segment to inform the faculty and students on the severity of domestic violence on campus and off. We at NKU News believe this is important because around the world at least 1 in every 3 women has been beaten, coerced into sex, or otherwise abused during her lifetime.
To begin, let's define what domestic violence is. According to helpguide.org, domestic violence is a pattern of ongoing, hurtful, manipulative, or controlling activities, including physical, sexual, psychological, emotional, and verbal abuse. It's being afraid of your partner or spouse.
Domestic violence is perpetrated against women in 95% of cases and is the single greatest cause of injury to women in this country. Domestic violence can affect anyone, from men to women, from children to the elderly.
Studies suggest that between 3.3 and 10 million children are exposed to domestic violence annually. In a national survey of more than 6,000 American families, 50% of men who frequently assaulted their wives also frequently assaulted their family or their children. The only thing that can be said in their defense is men who are exposed to their partner's domestic violence are twice as likely to abuse their own wives and children.
In high school age kids, domestic violence is also prevalent. 16 to 24-year-old women are constantly reported as a group most at risk of abuse. Approximately 1 in 5 female high school students reports being physically and or sexually abused by a dating partner.
40% of girls 14 to 17 report knowing someone their age who has been beaten by a boyfriend, and 8% of high school girls said yes when asked if a boyfriend had ever forced sex upon them.
Abused children and those exposed to adult violence in their homes may also have short and long-term physical, emotional, and learning problems, including increased aggression, decreased responsiveness to adults, failure to thrive, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, hypervigilance, hyperactivity, eating and sleeping problems, and developmental delays.
26% of mothers under the age of 18 experience domestic violence within 3 months of their child's birth. As many as 2/3 of adolescents who become pregnant were sexually or physically abused at some point in their lives.
The majority of domestic violence cases are reported by women. On average, almost 500 women, 483, are raped or sexually assaulted each day in this country. 71% of domestic crimes go unreported. 63 of these crimes say it's because the victims think police won't believe them. 1 in 5, which is around 21%, women reported that she had been raped or sexually assaulted in her lifetime.
Now there's a special section of the women category, those who are pregnant. 40% of abusive relationships begin during the woman's first pregnancy. Oftentimes, women with unplanned pregnancies have 2 to 4 times greater risk of being a victim of violence than women whose pregnancies were planned.
Women victimized by abuse are more likely to be diagnosed with serious health problems, including depression, panic attacks, high-risk behaviors such as tobacco and substance abuse, and sexual risk-taking, as well as migraines, chronic pain, arthritis, high blood pressure, gastrointestinal problems, inconstant use of birth control, and delayed entry into prenatal care.
Pregnant women are frequent targets of abuse, and as a result, are placed at risk for low birth weight babies, preterm labor. Pregnant and parenting teens are especially vulnerable. Each year, about 324,000 pregnant women in the U.S. are battered by the men in their lives.
Complications of pregnancy, including low weight gain, anemia, infections, and first and second trimester bleeding, are significantly higher for those abused women, as are maternal rates of depression, suicide attempts, tobacco, alcohol, and illicit drug use.
It also needs to be stated that men too can be abused, in both same-sex and heterosexual situations. 25% of same-sex relationships are marred by domestic violence.
On average, more than 3 women are murdered by their husbands or boyfriends in this country every day. In 2000, 440 men were killed by an illegitimate partner. However, 1,247, I'm going to say that again because it's that important, 1,247 women are killed by an intimate partner that same year.
One survey found that same-sex cohabitants reported significantly more intimate partner violence than did opposite-sex cohabitants. Among women, 39.2% of the same-sex cohabitants and 21.7% of opposite-sex cohabitants reported being raped or physically assaulted by marital or cohabitating partner at some point in their lifetime.
Now we've gone over some of the important statistics. Let's go over what signs are prevalent for domestic violence.
30% of Americans say they know a woman who has been physically abused by a boyfriend or husband in the last year. There are 6 tactics that offenders will use to get what they want, to abuse the victim. There is dominance, where they will make decisions for you and the family and tell you what to do. There is There is also humiliation, where they expect you to do anything because they make you feel bad. The theory is that if you believe you're worthless, no one will want you, and you're less likely to leave.
Abusers also try to cut you off from the rest of the world. Isolation. Threats are common. In order to scare their victim into not leaving, scaring is essential in abuse. Intimidation is all about keeping you in submission. And finally, abusers make excuses left and right to redeem themselves for bad behavior, using bad childhoods or bad days as an excuse.
There is a cycle to all this abuse. The abuser will begin lashing out with violence or aggression that leads to guilt. Guilt over the possibility of being caught and the consequences.
The guilt leads to excuses or blame for the victim for their behavior. And then the abuser tries to adapt a normal behavior. The normal behavior includes a honeymoon-like state where the victim thinks they've really changed this time. But sooner or later, the abuser will fantasize about abusing again and sets about planning about the abuse. The abuser sets out the victim up, creating a situation where he can justifiably abuse her, thus starting the cycle again.
Abuse covers both physical and verbal. Physical abuse can go from hitting to slapping, to forcing you to leave the house and locking you out. Verbal abuse is constant criticism and name-calling, not listening to what you are saying, and swearing.
Destruction of property, abusing authority, harassment, and economic control are also telltale signs of domestic violence. If you feel that you are, or you know somebody who is one of these situations, there are many hotlines, websites, and shelters at your disposal. In Kentucky alone, there is the Kentucky Domestic Violence Association website, kdva.org, and the Ohio Domestic Violence Network is also located at odvn.org. Let me say that again, that's odvn.org.
We want to thank you very much for tuning into this week's NKU News Desk. We hope this has been informative and helpful.
Have a great evening. Thank you.